the heart of Rome, where history whispers through ancient stone, a tech billionaire steps off a private jet, not to change the world, but to reconnect with it. Elon Musk, the man who reshaped industries and defied expectations, found himself on a journey unlike any other. With Shivan Zilis and their young children by his side, they were there to pause, breathe, and experience a world beyond innovation, something more personal, more grounding. But it wasn't just about ancient ruins or famous landmarks. It was about finding moments of stillness in a city that had seen it all. With every step, the Eternal City became a backdrop for something deeper, a journey into the heart of what truly mattered. Ready to see the side of Elon Musk you've never seen before? A tech billionaire's day in Rome. Rome was a city that promised timeless grandeur, but for Elon Musk and Shivan Zilis, it was also a rare opportunity to pause their whirlwind lives and just be a family. As their private jet touched down at Leonardo da Vinci Airport on a balmy summer morning, the Eternal City seemed to greet them with open arms. Elon, with his usual composed demeanor, stood by as Shivan helped their twin toddlers, Strider and Azure, navigate the bustling terminal. Meanwhile, their youngest, nestled in Shivan's arms, slept peacefully, oblivious to the adventure ahead. This wasn't just any vacation. Shivan, a formidable tech executive in her own right, had meticulously planned a trip that balanced relaxation with cultural enrichment. "The kids need to experience the world," she had said, her tone gentle yet determined. Elon, ever pragmatic, had hesitated at first. "I'm not exactly the Vatican type," he joked, a wry smile playing on his lips. But Shivan's vision was persuasive. "It's about showing them different perspectives," she had reasoned. And so, here they were. As they navigated Rome's labyrinthine cobblestone streets in a sleek black van, the city unfolded before them in a chaotic yet charming dance of modernity and antiquity. Shivan had insisted their first stop be the Vatican before retreating to the Amalfi Coast. "You can't visit Rome without seeing it," she declared with conviction. Though indifferent to religious sites, Elon agreed without much protest. "All right," he said, his curiosity piqued. "Let's see what all the fuss is about." Their arrival at Vatican City was nothing short of awe-inspiring. The sheer scale and majesty of St. Peter's Basilica even managed to capture Elon's attention. "Now this," he said, craning his neck to take in the massive dome, "is an engineering marvel." Shivan chuckled at his reaction. "You're wondering how they built it, aren't you?" "Of course," Elon replied, his gaze lingering on the intricate details. "No computers, no cranes, just ingenuity and manpower. Whether you believe in the mythology or not, it's impressive." Their guide, a young woman with an uncanny ability to bring history to life, led them through the basilica. Shivan listened intently as the guide wove stories of the past, occasionally pointing out fascinating details to the twins. But Strider and Azure were far more interested in the echoes their tiny shoes created on the marble floors, their laughter filling the grand space. Elon, ever the skeptic, posed pointed questions that veered toward the scientific. How did Michelangelo manage to paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling without ruining his neck? He asked, his tone a mix of genuine curiosity and subtle amusement. The guide smiled. Actually, he stood for most of it, leaning back on scaffolding. While the twins were captivated by the colorful light streaming through the basilica's grand windows, Shivan crouched down to their level. "Isn't it beautiful?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. The twins nodded enthusiastically, their wide eyes reflecting the kaleidoscope of hues. Though Shivan rarely spoke of religion, she seemed deeply moved by the broader significance of the art and architecture. As they passed Michelangelo's Pietà, she murmured, "There's something profoundly human about this. It's not just about faith, it's about creativity, resilience, and the human spirit." Elon, quiet but observant, nodded in agreement. His worldview had always valued kindness and innovation over rigid belief systems. "Kindness matters more than dogma," he often said. Shivan shared this pragmatic outlook, but her insistence on visiting the Vatican wasn't lost on him. This visit wasn't just about religion, it was about fostering a sense of curiosity and wonder in their children. What Elon didn't know was that their day was about to take an unexpected turn, one that none of them could have foreseen. As their tour through St. Peter's Basilica progressed, it already felt like a surreal experience. But when their guide paused near a smaller chapel and whispered, "The Pope is here today," Shivan's eyes lit up with excitement. Elon raised an eyebrow, his expression a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Pope Francis?" he asked, his tone disbelieving. "Yes," the guide confirmed. "It's not uncommon for him to hold informal sessions here, though it's always unannounced." For a moment, Elon hesitated. Seeking out religious leaders wasn't exactly his style, but the palpable curiosity in Shivan's eyes urged him forward. "Let's check it out," she said, her voice calm but insistent. The twins, blissfully unaware of the significance, tugged at her hands as they entered the chapel. The atmosphere inside was a stark contrast to the grandiosity of the basilica. It was smaller, intimate, and bathed in soft golden light. At the center stood Pope Francis, clad in simple white robes, addressing a small gathering. The room was hushed, save for the murmur of whispered prayers and the occasional shuffle of footsteps. Shivan's gaze was drawn to an intricately woven figure displayed behind the Pope, a masterpiece radiating warmth and craftsmanship. "It's beautiful," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Elon followed her line of sight and gave a slight nod. "Interesting design," he remarked. "I wonder what inspired it." His fascination with the human effort behind such creations often eclipsed his disinterest in their religious implications. The guide gestured towards a row of empty seats. "You're welcome to sit and listen," she said softly. Despite his initial reservations, Elon agreed. The family settled into the back row, with Shivan cradling their youngest and the twins squirming restlessly on either side. The Pope's voice, calm yet commanding, filled the room as he spoke of compassion and the unifying strength found in the community. Elon, tuning in and out of the theological discourse, found his attention repeatedly drawn to Shivan. Her quiet engagement, the way she gently encouraged the twins to soak in their surroundings, it all spoke volumes about her intentions. This wasn't just about sightseeing or cultural exposure. It was about instilling a sense of wonder, empathy, and openness in their children. For a man whose world revolved around logic and innovation, Elon found himself quietly moved by the moment, not by faith or doctrine, but by the simple beauty of connection and shared humanity. A silent transformation. The session soon took an unexpected turn that caught Elon completely off guard. Members of the audience began stepping forward one by one to share their personal stories. Tales of struggles with illness, loss, and moments of triumph or transformation. Each account was met with a kind word or a heartfelt blessing from Pope Francis, who listened with a quiet intensity that exuded empathy. Elon, unaccustomed to public displays of vulnerability, found himself intrigued by how easily these strangers opened up about their lives. A young woman, her voice trembling, spoke about her battle with depression and how she found solace in helping others. An elderly man recounted how he reconciled with his estranged son after years of silence, his voice thick with emotion. The stories were raw, deeply human, and unguarded in a way that left Elon pondering the dynamics of such openness. Leaning slightly towards Shivan, he murmured, "It's fascinating, isn't it? How people can share such personal stories in front of so many strangers." She nodded, her gaze fixed on the front of the room. "It's vulnerability," she said softly. "Sometimes it's easier to open up to strangers. Maybe they feel safe here, like they're being heard without judgment." Elon let her words sink in. His world was one of precision, logic, and innovation. A far cry from the emotional outpourings he was witnessing. And yet there was something compelling about the scene. It wasn't about religion, he realized. It was about connection. Why do we find it easier to bare our souls to strangers than to those we love? The question lingered in his mind as the session continued. As the twins, restless from sitting still, began to whisper questions, their curiosity broke the heavy silence. "Who's that man?" Strider asked, pointing toward the Pope. "Why is everyone talking to him?" Shivan smiled gently and crouched down to their level. "He's a leader for a lot of people," she explained. "They come to him to share their stories, to find advice or blessings. It's their way of finding comfort." The twins nodded, though their young minds likely grasped only fragments of her explanation. They returned to fidgeting with quiet giggles as Shivan adjusted the baby in her arms. As the session drew to a close, Pope Francis offered a simple prayer for unity and kindness. His words resonated in the quiet chapel, carried by an air of humility. Elon, who rarely lingered in moments of sentiment, found himself reflecting on the stark contrast between this humble gathering and his own high-powered world. It was unpolished, deeply emotional, and centered on faith, yet not entirely foreign. Even in his realm of innovation, he valued kindness, connection, and the pursuit of something greater than oneself. Then a voice near the front of the room pulled him out of his thoughts. A woman's story, shared in quivering tones, filled the space with a weight that silenced even the fidgeting children. She spoke of losing her young daughter, a tragedy that had left her family broken in ways words could barely capture. Through nights of despair and prayers that felt unanswered, she clung to hope. Now, years later, she was pregnant again. Tears streamed down her face as she described how she believed this new child was a gift from God, a sign of comfort and renewal. Could hope really emerge from such deep pain? Elon stiffened, the woman's words cutting through him like a shard of glass. A memory he seldom let surface rose unbidden. Nevada, his firstborn, was taken from him by sudden infant death syndrome at just 10 weeks old. Nearly 2 decades had passed, yet the ache lingered like an old wound that never truly healed. He rarely spoke of it, even to Shivan. Instead, he buried the pain in work, channeling his grief into the relentless pursuit of progress, science, medicine, and technology, hoping to solve problems too vast for words. But now, hearing this woman's story, he felt an unsettling tug of recognition. It wasn't about religion, he realized, but about strength, a strength born of pain and shaped by the need to hold on to something greater than oneself. The chapel seemed to absorb the woman's sorrow, diffusing it into a collective understanding that made her burden lighter. For the first time, Elon caught a glimpse of why people shared their most intimate struggles in spaces like this. It wasn't about receiving answers. It was about the act of unburdening, about finding solace in shared humanity. What would it feel like to let go of the pain he'd carried alone for so long? The question startled him, and for a moment, he let himself wonder. His thoughts were interrupted by a gentle nudge from Shivan. "Elon," she whispered, her voice soft but firm, grounding him back in the present. "It's our turn." He blinked, realizing the families were lining up to meet the Pope for a personal blessing. Shivan had already stood, the baby nestled in her arms, and the twins were tugging eagerly at her free hand. The guide gestured toward the front, and without much thought, Elon rose to follow. The line moved steadily, each family receiving their own brief but personal moment with the Pope. As they neared the front, Elon observed the simplicity of the interactions. Despite the reverence surrounding him, there was no pretense, just a man in white robes offering warmth and sincerity to those who approached him. When it was their turn, Elon stepped forward with his family, uncertain but willing to embrace the moment. Pope Francis greeted them with a gentle smile that reached his eyes, the kind of expression that instantly disarmed any nerves. It was clear he recognized Elon, but there was no mention of his fame or achievements. Instead, he extended his hand with quiet grace. "Mr. Musk," he said warmly, his voice steady, "it's good to see you here." "And you, Your Holiness," Elon replied, his voice unusually soft. The Pope's demeanor had a way of making even a man as calculated as Elon feel at ease. Shivan introduced herself and the children, her tone light and cheerful. The Pope bent slightly to greet the twins, who stared up at him with wide-eyed curiosity before shyly hiding behind Shivan's legs. Their youngest, still cradled in her arms, cooed softly and reached out a tiny hand toward the Pope. He chuckled, touching the baby's hand with a gentleness that matched his aura. In the brief exchange that followed, Pope Francis spoke of family's importance, the beauty of children, and the profound power of love. Elon nodded occasionally, absorbing the words, though his mind kept drifting back to the woman's story and the lingering memories of Nevada. There was something about this moment, this setting, that stayed with him. Maybe it was the quiet simplicity of it all, or the unspoken understanding shared among strangers. Whatever it was, it left an imprint on him, one that he couldn't quite articulate but knew he wouldn't forget. When the interaction ended, the Pope raised his hand in a simple gesture of blessing. For most, it would seem routine, perhaps even expected. But for Elon, who didn't place much stock in spiritual traditions, the moment landed differently. It wasn't logical, but there was something about it that felt calming. As they turned to leave, Elon's attention snagged on something across the room. His steps faltered, his gaze locking onto a family sitting a few rows back. It was as if the world had suddenly dimmed, drawing his focus to this one scene: a father, a mother, and their two children. Their clothes were modest, a little worn, but clean and neat. They sat closely together, radiating a quiet warmth that stood in stark contrast to the ornate chapel around them. The youngest child, a boy no older than 5, let out a soft giggle as his sister leaned in to whisper something to him. The father smiled, reaching out to tousle the boy's hair, while the mother looked on with a serene contentment, her smile calm and unwavering. It was such a simple moment, yet it struck Elon with surprising force. What was it about this family? He felt his chest tighten, the scene pulling at something deep within him. The low hum of voices, the grandeur of the chapel, and even Shivan's gentle nudging faded into the background. All he could see was this family, so ordinary yet somehow extraordinary. It wasn't that they looked free of hardship. Elon knew better. Every life carried struggles. Maybe this family was living paycheck to paycheck, wrestling with worries about tomorrow. Perhaps they'd faced heartbreak or challenges that weren't visible from the outside. Yet, in this moment, none of that seemed to matter. They were laughing, together, peaceful. Elon's mind, always working to dissect and understand, stumbled over the weight of what he was feeling. Was this faith, he wondered? Was it some kind of sanctuary where people could set aside their burdens, even briefly? Did it strip away everything else? Status, wealth, identity, and leave only what truly mattered? The thought gnawed at him. His life revolved around solving problems, advancing technology, and driving humanity forward. Yet here was something that defied fixing. This wasn't about innovation. It wasn't about solutions. It was about surrender. Have you ever felt like a stranger to your own emotions? Like a moment was trying to tell you something you weren't ready to hear? Elon's gaze lingered on the family, an unspoken question forming in his mind. Could peace really be this simple? Could it be found not in answers, but in letting go? Elon? Shivan's soft voice cut through his thoughts, her hand brushing against his arm. He blinked, suddenly aware of the bustling world around him. She gave him a gentle smile, urging him forward. But even as they left the chapel, even as they continued their carefully curated tour of the Vatican, the family remained etched in his mind. The father's soft chuckle, the boy's laughter, the mother's tranquil smile. It was a small, quiet moment, but it carried a weight that wouldn't leave him. What if the most profound lessons didn't come from monumental achievements, but from the quiet, unguarded moments we're often too busy to notice? The rest of the holiday unfolded as planned. Luxurious dinners, breathtaking views, and carefully crafted experiences meant to dazzle. But no matter what filled the day, that family stayed with him. Elon, who prided himself on thinking forward, found his thoughts circling back to that single moment. It wasn't about faith in the religious sense, at least not for him. It was something else entirely. Something that had nothing to do with dogma or tradition, but everything to do with connection. It was the quiet humanity of it all. The laughter, the closeness, the peace that didn't need a reason. For the first time in years, Elon Musk found himself wrestling with something that couldn't be calculated or solved. He didn't know why it mattered, but he couldn't stop thinking about it. Sometimes the moments that change us aren't the loud, earth-shattering ones. They're the quiet whispers that stay long after everything else fades. Do you think faith, religious or not, has the power to make people feel equal, even if only temporarily? Why or why not? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.